Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to CBC Interviews. In celebration of Canada's one-year anniversary of national healthcare, we have with us today Tommy Douglas. So great to have you here with us, Tommy.
The pleasure's all mine.
Well, Tommy, this is a big day for us Canadians, and frankly, it's all thanks to you. With the help of the CCF, you were able to turn your dream of free healthcare for Canadians into a reality. Taking back to 1961, that moment when you first introduced complete healthcare insurance in Saskatchewan. Arguably, the event that led to this point in history.
Ah yes, Saskatchewan. Well, by that time, I was the Premier of Saskatchewan for 17 years. The members of the CCF and I had to overcome some struggles in the accusations of being associated with communism and the protests we had to face. But I like to think that after all those years of working for change, we created something substantial in the full health insurance plan we established in Saskatchewan at the time. Although the CCF ceased its operations by the time healthcare was introduced, I still felt a sense of accomplishment, and I'm sure most of my colleagues felt a similar way.
Extremely true. Tommy, most of us here already are aware of the impact of your work. But for those at home that are unaware, could you explain to us how your introduction of full healthcare in Saskatchewan influenced the healthcare insurance system to be introduced on a national level?
Well, if you want to know how our work influenced the government, you need to rewind to the first few years that I started serving as Premier. Back in 1947, you remember when we introduced the Hospital Services Act in Saskatchewan. After that act was implemented, the government followed by initiating a national plan to help to fund diagnostic services and hospital operating costs within the provinces. We realized then that our work was having a real impact in Canada's policies, as evidenced by how the federal government followed up on an act that we introduced. Fast forward around a decade to when we introduced full healthcare in Saskatchewan in 1961. Although I was not serving as Premier at the time, I believe that I played a large role in the formation of the legislation. 5 years after we introduced full healthcare for the residents of Saskatchewan, look what happened. The federal government introduced full healthcare for all Canadians in 1966 with the Medical Care Act, an event that I believe can be at least partially attributed to the efforts of the CCF and myself.
Don't be so modest, Tommy. Your work has an enormous impact on the federal government. However, with great accomplishments, there are bound to be sacrifices. Enlighten me. What kept you firm to your beliefs during the Saskatchewan's doctor strike? People were dying during that time due to the lack of doctors. What was going on in your mind?
There comes a time in life when you have to make a decision that will determine the rest of your future. The Saskatchewan doctor strike back in May of 1962 confronted me with a decision that I thought would determine the rest of Canada's future. My decision to remain true to my beliefs of healthcare was not an easy one. It never was throughout the duration of my political career. I also send my sympathies to those families that were affected by the strike, as it was an unfortunate loss of life. However, I do not regret the decision that I made. Think about it this way. Had we given into the doctors' protests and given up on a Medicare program in Saskatchewan, we would have gone down one path, a path where we would not have Medicare today. However, our group persevered, and we did not hesitate in the face of the doctors, enabling us to go down the other path. Look where that path has led us. A tangible healthcare system for all Canadians. In my honest opinion, I believe that the decisions we made during that strike were, in the end, beneficial not only for current Canadians, but also for future generations that will inhabit our land.
Well put. I do not like picking favorites, but personally, I'm grateful for what you did during that strike. Had you acted differently back then, we may not be here talking right now, let alone have free healthcare. My final question to you, Tommy. What is so important about having a national healthcare system in place?
Do you mind if I reminisce a bit?
We have all the time in the world.
Alright, my inspiration for national healthcare originates from my childhood. When I was only 14 years old, I developed a serious bone infection in my leg. My parents were not able to pay for a specialist to operate on my leg, so my doctor said that I would need to get it amputated. However, in a stroke of luck, a surgeon said that he would be willing to operate on my leg without charge, provided that his students would be able to watch for educational purposes. My leg was saved, and I yearned for free healthcare for all Canadians ever since. Aside from my personal wishes, there are some objective reasons as to why full healthcare is so important. Take, for example, children born with disabilities. How are parents who are unable to pay for proper treatment and rehabilitation going to assist the many needs of their children? What about the elderly? How will they pay for their medical bills after they've retired? Finally, what about all of the sick Canadians? Free healthcare is important, as it ensures that we are doing everything we can to prevent illnesses, rather than treating people only once they have actually become sick.
This has been an amazing talk, Tommy. I want to once thank you again for taking your time out of the day to star on our show. It's been a pleasure meeting you.
Likewise. Thanks for having me.
Well, folks, that's all we have today. Tune in next week when we have another guest speaker with us. CBC, signing off.